Hey, and welcome to the next edition of the Deals podcast. And I'm really excited to welcome my friend and fellow board member, Suzi Carter. Hey, Suzi, how you doing?
Hi, Mark. Yeah, great. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Really excited to go through this deal that we've heard about. But first of all, for anybody that doesn't know you, could you give us a bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a chartered surveyor. I've been a chartered surveyor for well over 25 years, which is quite scary. And I've got a corporate background.
You certainly don't look it, Suzi. 25
bless
years.
you. And I've got a corporate background. I've worked for CBRE, B&Q, Land Securities, all in commercial real estate. So managed big portfolios of retail parks, shopping centres, worked in industrial offices, etc. And in 2015, I decided that I wanted to quit the corporate world. It wasn't working for me anymore. Started investing myself and in joint ventures. And more recently, I've set up the Commercial Property Academy, which is basically my way of being able to help others using my kind of vast experience in commercial real estate. So it's online course, weekly mentoring, and just about to launch in the next couple of months, kind of some small group mentoring as well for people.
Oh, exciting. Yeah, fantastic. So just tell us about your experience on the property entrepreneur then. When did you join and what was the reason for that?
So I've been on Property Entrepreneur for 3 years, on the board for a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I genuinely think it's turned the dial for me. I think there's lots of different ways. I mean, obviously, I think the main one for me is being in a room with lots of successful property investors and business people. And so aside from the mentoring that Dan provides, which is obviously world class, the kind of, one of my objectives as I emerged from the first year of Property Entrepreneur was to raise my peer group. And I definitely feel that's definitely been achieved. I feel like I've really raised my game as a result. So, it is fantastic.
Excellent. And what's your wealth dynamic profile?
So I'm a deal maker. So I've got, although I think these days I'm kind of going up to supporter on occasions as well, because I'm doing more training. But I kind of got a good dose of tempo in me as well as blaze.
Very good. There's not many of us tempos about, so
let's stick together.
Absolutely, yeah. So you've kind of come out of corporate life and now you're working on your own portfolio and with like joint ventures with clients as well. What's your main strategy at the moment?
So 2022, the main strategy is investing in for ourselves is investing in commercial. So we're looking at a lot of industrial at the moment to invest in, although it's pretty punchy prices out there at the moment. Yeah. And some commercial conversions as well we're looking at, but I'm not willing to overpay for them. Like, some of the opportunities on the market are pretty expensive. Yeah. And then in the joint venture I'm about to talk about, we're looking at buying mixed use commercial residential with some angles for serviced accommodation.
All right. Okay. Yeah. And what areas do you focus at within the country? Is it different areas?
Yeah. So I'm focusing much more down. We moved house about 9 months ago. So we're now in Gloucestershire. So Gloucestershire, Oxfordshire, Worcestershire, Herefordshire are kind of the main areas so definitely investing more locally than have done previously.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. And then looking at deals then, what's your main route to market? So if anybody else that might be interested in getting in looking at commercial opportunities, where do you look?
So obviously you look at things that are on market. I mean, in commercial real estate, a really good tip for a lot of people is to nurture some relationships with commercial agents, because there's a huge chunk of commercial deals that don't even reach the market. So I wouldn't say they're truly off market, because I think there's an investor database that probably get them, but it's definitely worth nurturing some strong relationships with commercial agents. So that's definitely a route to market for me. And then direct to vendor. it's surprisingly successful. I think it's more successful in some areas than others, but certainly I find that direct-to-vendor marketing has been, at the moment, we've got a lot of leads from direct-to-vendor marketing.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. And is that looking at a particular type of property that you're looking for the direct-to-vendor? Do you have like different strategies and marketing campaigns on that?
Yeah. So the recent campaign we've done is on kind of shops and uppers, but it's also got some offices, some industrial in there. It's kind of but it's mainly shops and uppers. But we're just about to launch a campaign for industrial, direct-to-vendor for industrial, and I'll be really interested to see what the run rate is on that, given the market's pretty strong in that area. But certainly that's an area that we want to grow into this year.
Okay, great. Yeah. So once you get a deal, what's your way to stack a deal? How do you kind of like appraise that?
So with commercial stuff, I tend to do a bit of we always call it fag packet. It feels really old fashioned to say that now, but kind of just do a fag packet deal stack in terms of, I use Nimbus maps a lot for my deal stacking. And put kind of where I think the tone of the yield is in the area, and just work it through just broad brush to see whether it's even worth me spending more time on, and also what things like Nimbus maps are useful for is kind of looking at how much the purchaser paid for it, and just kind of looking at whether there's a ballpark deal to be done or whether there's not. And then if it kind of passed the sniff test on that one, then I've got a detailed deal stacker that I go through and work through to see whether it's worth us pursuing, and then obviously nurture relationships, etc., to move that forwards.
Yeah. So I suppose there's so many different things with commercial properties. Is there like value add on it? Can you kind of like increase the rents? Is there planning gains? Is there kind of like commercial conversion costs? So there is quite a lot of work that goes into looking at these deals, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not all what you don't always have to do physical works with commercial property, which is one of the beauties of it. So, it can often be a paper-based exercise, either to do a letting or to restructure leases. So, it's really important before you buy commercial property to speak to the tenants, find out what the lease is, find out whether, find out from local agents whether there's any, demand for that unit, whether you could increase rents, whether you could lengthen the lease. So there's a lot of due diligence that, you have to do, other than kind of what pound per square foot conversion cost would it be or whatever, because you don't always have to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. And then as far as structuring deals, how do you do that? Do you kind of like, have you got certain SPVs that you do? Do you have just anybody that's kind of like looking at doing these kind of things? What do you particularly, I know you can't advise people, but.
Yeah. So we've got an investment company that we largely invest in, but if we're doing developments, we'll definitely look at doing an SPV. Yeah. And developments can be conversions, and it depends also whether we're converting for sale or converting to hold, whether it's going to involve title splits further down the line. But one thing that I always do is, I'm on speed dial to my accountant basically, and I never buy anything in an entity before I've discussed it at length with my accountant and made sure that I'm structuring it properly in the kind of context of everything that we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back this particular property in Worcester. Do you want to give us a bit of background, how you came across it and what type of property it is?
Yeah, sure. So, so this one I've done in a joint venture. So I got to know my joint venture partners. I did some training with them in 2014, 2015. We got to know each other really well. And I have to say, it's a joint venture based on really shared values. So I think that's kind of a testament to the success of it, is that we've got very similar approaches and values. And the property's in Worcestershire. It's a listed grade 2 listed terrace. Effectively, it's made up of 3 properties, although one of them is 2 properties joined together. So effectively 4 properties in a listed facade. And It was on the market.
It's also it's quite a big property as well. It's like 3 stories, is it? How many stories is it?
It is, yeah. Yeah, and it comprised previously. It was a big HMO, so it was a 28 bed, a 6 bed, and a 6 bed HMO. Wow. So there was a lot of rooms. Apologies, there was 28 rooms in total. Apologies, it wasn't the 6.
What was the tenant type when you bought it?
So the tenant type hasn't changed that much, actually. It was workers. Okay. So workers, and it's in Worcester. It's very, very close to the city centre. I mean, you can walk into the city centre. Yeah. So very close to one of the main railway stations there. So it's really, really well located. So much so, actually, that there's very little parking there, but you kind of don't need it, and a lot of the tenants don't have cars. And as I say, it was openly marketed, so it was, I think a lot of people had looked at it, but just weren't quite sure how to make it work. And it was on the market at 1.1 million. So actually, I was approached by, I wasn't in a joint venture then, but I was approached by these people I knew who I'm now in a joint venture with on the property, and so we worked it up together. And we talked. Basically, our approach was to split the title upon entry into the property, so that obviously we had a value uplift to begin with, and then we'll kind of talk about the other asset management angles as we go. Okay,
so you came across the property, you saw the title split opportunity. So the title split, did you do that afterwards, or did you do that kind of like between exchange completion?
We did it. We told them we wanted to buy it in effectively four bundles. Right, okay. So we did it on entry. So we split it into 3 houses, and then we split the land at the back. Effectively, we split the land off, which was a big garden. We split that off as well.
Okay, yeah. So do you want to just go through the numbers, and then you've also got like the value out of what you've done since? So on the purchase, you bought it for?
Yeah, so all in, we bought it for about 1.13 million, obviously with purchases, costs, etc.
Yeah.
And then the idea was because it's quite a unique type of property, because it's a Georgian property. It's got really big rooms, so it's not just like a little HMO room that you're kind of struggling to get minimum sizes on. Most, if not all, of the properties have got their own kitchen, and a lot of them have their own WC, but most of them share facilities.
Okay.
Share bathroom facilities. So the idea was that we would. So we went through. I mean, goodness knows how many models we ran on this when we were buying it. Because what I love about big properties like this is there's so many different angles that you can do, and actually, I think in a way there was almost too many, because we got a little bit early doors. We got a little bit lost in all the angles, and
best way.
We finally. What we finally land. Sorry, Mark, go on.
So just going back to what you said before about the title split, what was the uplift just on the title split side, do you think?
Yeah, we didn't get it valued, but I mean 1.1, I would think we probably added at least 100,000, based on the title split. Probably more, but we just never had it. We never had it formally valued. What it did mean, of course, is that if we'd literally just wanted to split away one of the properties straight away, we could have done that. So rather than selling the whole, it was just a lot more liquid product when we'd done the title split, which has always been a nice kind of exit angle if we'd wanted it. And it's something we've looked at a few times as to whether we just sell one of the properties and just repay finance or whatever. So yes, we so the very first thing we did was that we basically applied for, we worked up with architects and planners. We worked up a footprint for the building whereby we split everything into flats, and that did mean losing the number of rooms. But the idea was that when we split into flats, we would kind of gradually take away the HMO element of the property and convert it to kind of single lets. And so we applied for planning, we received it, and obviously we had to go for listed building consent as well. And as a condition of it, we had to replace windows, and of course in a listed building you've got sliding sash windows and things, so you know there's a reasonable amount of costs associated with that. But we've basically worked our way through the building. We haven't completed it yet, and at the moment we're quite comfortable with kind of where we are, but out of cash flow over the years, you know, this is relatively long-term hold for us. We'll kind of do some more conversion works. But the first two properties we did are two of the smaller houses that we split off. So they were both 6-bed HMOs, very tired, hadn't been touched for a very long time. So they were very, very average kind of HMOs, and their competitiveness in the market would have been decreased over time.
Yeah.
You know, the location was propping it up basically.
Yeah.
So we started on that, and actually because of the nature of the property, we actually ended up with 5 flats there.
Okay.
In each one, and because of that, because they were really, you know, beautiful, what we think beautifully refurbished, we managed to increase all the rents. So what I probably should have said is right across the piece, the rents were very low for the area.
Okay.
We had some rents that were around £150 a month to kind of £350 a month. And actually, on some of the flats now, just put that in context, we're getting £650 a month. So in the first year, we did, even though we hadn't done a lot of the works, we did actually just have an automatic rental uplift.
Yeah.
We served notice on tenants to do that, and so that gave us an uplift in rent immediately. But because of the refurbishment, we managed to increase the rent significantly, and then we refinanced those 2 blocks, and then the larger block, as I say, not all of the flat conversions have been done, but we have done some as tenants have moved out, or you know, we've needed to do compliant refurbs or whatever else we've needed to do. And again, we've managed to increase the rent. So just to give you a context of the whole picture, so obviously we bought it for 1.13-ish. We spent a region of 250,000 on the property, and we've had a refinance on 2 of the units, and we've just had our evaluation on the larger block. And the property is worth in the region of 2 million now.
Oh, amazing!
All in.
Yeah, fantastic.
Which is pretty. Yeah, we're really pleased with. Actually, it's been a really good one for us.
Yeah, I think it just shows you the size of them. So you're saying a 6-bed HMO you made into 5 flats, did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was they the national space standards? You know, 37 square meters. Was that in then? Have you had to do them to that size?
No, I mean we haven't needed to, because they're all really good size. You know, the square footage really hasn't been an issue. I mean, we did make sure that everything was larger than 30 square meters. The national minimum space standards weren't in when we went for the planning. Yeah. But we wanted to make sure that everything was above 30 square meters at least.
Yeah.
But I would say most are over 35.
Right. Yeah. It just shows you the size of the building there, because that's pretty big to get, say, like, you know, 165 square meters or something like that. As a 6-bed HMO, that's, So I would have thought like a 6-bed HMO, probably the ones that we've done about 120 square meters or something like that. So yours just shows the big building, which is great. And to get that, something that's kind of like run down, low rents, you've obviously spotted the opportunity. You've done a title split. You've added the value with the refurb, changing them to the flats, and got a massive uplift. But it doesn't end there. This deal keeps on giving.
It is, yeah. So, and actually, just a bit of a shout out. My JV partners manage this day to day as well. So it really genuinely has been a massive team effort on this one. I definitely can't take all the credit for it in the slightest. And they've managed a lot of the refurbs, etc. So we have this garden at the back, which is actually really lovely. It's in a conservation area. And we always knew that it had development potential, but we knew it would be challenging in planning terms because it's in a conservation area. And we've had various discussions with planning officer, and I think we basically, in the draft local plan, we applied for it to be two or three houses. But it's kind of transpired over the whole period of the property that actually we can perhaps put a slightly different use on there, which has got better planning chances. So we were looking at, up until recently, we were looking at working with a housing association to put a much higher density development on there than we were previously anticipating, if I'm honest. And the planning officer is very, very open to that. Is very keen to explore that, because there is a net, they need to have a net gain in the amount of floor space for that use in the area. And a deal that we were, and as I say, kind of we were looking to do, because actually we changed course recently, and I explained to you why, but a deal that we were looking to do was do a forward funding solution. So basically, this is the kind of thing that I've done through my corporate career and in some consultancy I've done, which is basically where you get a tenant, like a housing association or a whoever, signed up for a long-term lease, 15 to 20 years, and then a pension fund or an investment fund basically want to buy that income. So they're purely buying the income. Of course, they buy the property, but the reason is they want to buy relatively secure income for that period. And we were looking at doing a forward funding solution whereby we would do a pre-let to the housing association, then the funder, either just before planning or during planning, would come in and sign a forward funding agreement with us, which would mean that they would fund the development. They would give us land value upon planning. And then they would fund the development, and then obviously we'd get a profit spewed out at the other end, depending on build costs. And we were all kind of guns blazing to do that, but given the recent environment, the rise in build costs, that was becoming increasingly risky from our perspective, and mainly actually because we aren't builders. We do investment conversions, but at the moment we don't do developments, all out development. So we've actually decided to sell the site, and we've had it valued in between £400,000 and £500,000, and
amazing.
We're getting some really positive. It'll be a subject to planning deal, but we're getting some really positive noises from the market that we can get numbers in that kind of region. So keeping fingers well and truly crossed for that one. but I think all, and obviously we need to, as part of that, we need to make sure that we're not affecting our property to the front. So we need to make sure that there's adequate division between them and everything else you need to do when you think about that, enough parking, etc., access. But we're comfortable we can do that.
Oh, amazing. So what is that like to be? Is that like to be flats or houses or?
Yeah, it'll be flats. It's very likely to be flats, and but I say with some care provision in it. So there'll be wardens probably, or some support that's offered as part of that accommodation.
And what kind of tenant type might that be for?
Well, obviously we are very interested in that. So any deal that comes forward, we will be making sure that we know exactly what's going to happen to it, because we want to protect our property to the front. But from the recent soundings, it looks like it is going to literally be kind of extra care. Okay. So we don't want any antisocial uses there. We want to make sure that that's not going to happen. But some extra care facilities of whatever type that might be.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody that was looking to kind of do a similar property, similar like project, and they were looking to get involved with like maybe a housing association or somebody to come in and like provide a lease. What kind of tips would you say as to how to make contact with these types?
Yeah, so definitely speak to the care commissioner at the county council or the unitary authority or whatever kind of authority you're with, just to make sure that they would support that type of use, because you definitely need them on board. And then it's just a case of seeing who the main players are locally, seeing who's taking that kind of accommodation. We got some really great intel from local investors, local architects who do work for care providers, housing associations, etc. And we had somebody working with us on that as well. So yeah, I mean, it's not always the easiest route, because it can be challenging to get these type of operators to commit, but definitely bringing the care commissioner in and getting their support has been very key to it.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so just going through like the headline numbers then. So this is a property you was kind of like, you bought 1.1, you had your purchasing costs, you had your conversion costs, as you've been doing the upgrades. So you was just under like 1.4 million, and then you got a revaluation of about 2 million. Is that about right?
Yeah, we've got a reval of obviously per property of just under 2, and then the land, as far as we're concerned, the land on top of that is super profit from our perspective.
Fantastic.
So, but if we achieve that, it'll be in the region of 2.5 million GDV all in. And then the rent, when we bought it, was approximately £107,000 gross per annum. And we've increased that to in the region of £180,000.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So something like £1 million equity gain, and a massive uplift on the rentals. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and what we've done is we've refinanced some of that to grow the portfolio in the JV, which has been pay back the original finance. So it is will be, when this refinance comes in, all money out, and then we're using that to grow the portfolio further.
Fantastic. So just to end up, can you give us like 3 tips for people that are kind of like looking to get into like the commercial space, apart from obviously joining the Commercial Property Academy? What else would you? That'd be tip number 1, would it? But
I'm far too modest to put that as tip number 1. So I think the first one is that you don't. Obviously, the property that we're talking about is residential, but it has definitely got a lot of similarities with some commercial stuff that you could look at. But for pure commercial, I think the first tip is, don't always assume that you have to convert commercial property. I think there's a lot of people, because of the new permitted development rights, are going into, quite rightly actually, going into commercial conversions, and it can be a really profitable strategy. But you don't have to, or not, maybe not even straight away. You don't have to do that conversion. What I say to a lot of my clients is, with build costs the way they are, and on the peculiarities of their deal, it wouldn't hurt just to get a tenant in there short term, and then the conversion angle will be there later. And actually that's proved to be actually just as profitable for some clients as going the all-out conversion. And you can actually change leases, change tenants on commercial real estate. So it's definitely just not one strategy. Just kind of open your mind a bit more, I think, would be the first one. I think the second
just
one
on that point,
is...
sorry, just on that point, it was kind of like saying, I've got some clients I work with, been selling some of their HMOs, and that's what they actually do. So they'll look at like commercial, and they'll actually negotiate with the existing tenants and just extend the lease. So they kind of like might have like 5 years left. They'll negotiate before they buy it. They already set that up, and then they might say like do like a new 15-year lease, and then it's just creating the value then.
Absolutely.
Right.
And
yeah.
yeah, and you can you should always talk to if there is in situ tenants, you should always talk to them before to see whether you can do a deal before you even buy it.
Yeah.
That's very, very common in the market, and certainly speak to local commercial agents in terms of what other demand there is, etc. So you can definitely do that. The second tip is niching. It's something I bang on about a lot in the Commercial Property Academy.
Okay.
But the way the market is at the moment, and has been for the recent, the near future, the recent past, with COVID and with Brexit, and just the way the market's fragmenting, is that every sector of commercial real estate is reacting differently, and every sector is very, very different to the other. You just got to take the main three, offices, industrial, and retail, and I don't need to explain to anybody listening to this kind of why they're all different now. And it used to be that the market used to all rise together or fall together, but obviously that's not happening now. So, niching is where you can get a real competitive advantage in commercial real estate, where you can niche by location or niche by sector, niche by type of property. And, you can become the expert in that. And, you can really get a competitive advantage by niching your strategies. And therefore, it's something that proper property entrepreneur teaches a lot as well. Don't be a mile, I'm going to get this wrong, don't be a mile wide and an inch deep, be a mile deep and an inch wide, and that never more has that referred to commercial, I think, than it does at the moment. So that would definitely be my second tip. And then third is kind of nurture some great relationships with real estate agents, commercial agents, because they really can be a fantastic source of deals. And not only that, they can act on your behalf. So it's very alien for residential investors to have an agent acting on their behalf to help them acquire property, to help them let property. But it's very, very commonplace in the commercial market. So to have great relationships with commercial agents, it can really de-risk a purchase if you've got a valuer or an agent acting on your behalf, because they can cover the market, see what tenants can take it. They'll tell you what rents you could get, they'll tell you what lease terms you could get, and it definitely gives you the edge by having those relationships.
Excellent. Well, great to catch you up, and congratulations again on that deal.
Thanks, Mark.
And also congratulations with your new puppy.
I'm really amazed that we've not been disrupted by the new puppy, so I'm very grateful to him.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
See you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.